And thank you for tuning in and for watching. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Cutter Martin here with a check of the First Alert forecast. A lot of weather to talk about, not necessarily here in the next 24, 48, or even 72 hours. But as we get into the latter portion of the work week, big changes. Not with a front or necessarily or anything like that, but we're going to be watching the tropics pretty closely, the Western Caribbean at the moment. Then that focus will shift to the Gulf of Mexico, and we're going to be watching what happens in the Gulf of Mexico. We have Invest 97L. This is basically an area that the National Hurricane Center is investigating, hence Invest 97L, and they're watching it for tropical development, now giving it an 80% chance of development within the next 7 days. And in reality, that development likely to occur within the next 48 to 72 hours as we get into Tuesday, going into Wednesday, perhaps Monday evening, Monday night as well. And the tropics can pull surprises sometimes. So it could be earlier than that, could hold off, take a little bit longer for this thing to wrap up, but nonetheless something we will be watching here in North Georgia, because there are a few scenarios where we see significant weather impacts here in North Georgia and Metro Atlanta. So it is worthy of your attention. If you're watching from coastal Georgia, it's still worthy of your attention. South Carolina as well. Our neighbors to the west, Alabama, certainly worthy of your attention. Regionally, really, most of the southeast states, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, even up into Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, even Louisiana needs to keep a closer eye on this. This system has yet to form. And until it does so, there's going to continue to be a greater than normal amount of uncertainty in the First Alert forecast. But while we're going to get to the details with the system, what we know now, and the timeline of when we'll figure things out, basically, we're going to go into that here in just a moment. I do want to begin with what's happening today. We set a record high temperature. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport reached 97 degrees this afternoon. The record was 95. So we blew that out of the water. So that sets a new record for the date. And now it's a warm, dry evening across North Georgia with not too much going on weather-wise. And that will be the case for the next 48, 72 or so hours here in Metro Atlanta, across North Georgia, and in this area. But First Alert weather days, Thursday and Friday, for potentially significant impacts from whatever Helene, that is the next name on the list, from whatever Helene becomes. And some of the data that we look at, and just looking at the setup, the players in the game here, we could see a very significant system in the Gulf of Mexico, but how strong it becomes, exactly where it goes, TBD, to be determined. We're still fairly early in the game, and we're well inland, but something to watch here over the next few days. We will be keeping you updated right here on ANF Plus streams like this one, Atlanta News First Plus, Roku, Amazon Fire, YouTube. You can stream in the Atlanta News First app and the First Alert Weather app as well. Also, we'll keep you updated on air. No shock there, and updates in the First Alert Weather app. In fact, sent one earlier this afternoon, about to record a new one, and we'll have that in your phone as it relates to our forecast and what we expect this system to do here over the next few days. In fact, let's go ahead and we can bring you to satellite and radar. We're going to zoom out here and show you where the system is now. Again, well to our south, and I'm going to have to switch the radar mode over, just talking you through what I'm doing in case you see something change on the screen. This system is well to our south, basically near Honduras, south and east of the Yucatan Peninsula, center of circulation. While not technically a tropical system, area of lowest pressure, a little bit of spin above the surface. That is just off the coast there in the extreme western and southwestern Caribbean Sea. You can see showers and thunderstorms are continuing to kind of blow up around this system, well away even from that center of circulation. What circulation there is, mind you, that's right here. Denoted by the X, that's Invest 97L. We have a little bit of southwesterly wind shear coming in from the south and west, blowing our thunderstorm tops off to the north and east. And you can kind of see this across the Caribbean, all these cloud top showers and thunderstorms being pushed back towards Jamaica, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. So conditions at the moment, not that favorable for tropical development, at least intense and rapid development. But that will change here over the next couple of days as the system emerges over very warm waters in the western Caribbean, pulls away from land, so less land interaction, and wind shear starts to abate. We'll really see all the ingredients there for significant strengthening of this system, again, forecast to become Helene across either the western Caribbean or the southern Gulf of Mexico. As it pertains to our forecast, we are watching Thursday into Friday. It is looking likely that there will be impacts to the United States. Now, The extent of our impacts here in North Georgia, still quite a bit unknown. But what we do know is that the days to watch for local impacts will be Thursday and Friday. Both are first alert weather days. It's not often you see pinks on the map here. Again, this is just one run of one forecast model. But there is a consensus that we're going to have a significant tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico. At least a tropical storm, I'd say on the lower end of things, and possibly a major hurricane spinning its way through the Gulf of Mexico. And Tuesday into Wednesday, for us, it would be after landfall, of course, that we would see our worst weather. And in a worst case scenario, we would see significant heavy rain and potentially some widespread street flooding around our urban areas and maybe even some longer lasting river flooding. In a worst case scenario, which can't quite be taken off the table just yet, so we're letting you know what could happen. I want to give you a few days heads up, let you know that you could have significant issues going about your day, Thursday and Friday, weather-wise. But, of course, system has not even formed yet. All it takes is a little bit of a sharper turn, and our impacts will be very different, or a westward trend in the forecast, and our impacts will be different. So there are so many moving pieces in the atmosphere that will determine what we see here in North Georgia and across Metro Atlanta as we get into Thursday and Friday. But we're letting you know, we're highlighting those days, we're watching those days. You should too when it comes to the first alert forecast. Again, we're going to go in greater detail here, walk you through some forecast models, and just lay out the setup and why it's kind of a weird one as we get into the heart of the stream here in a couple minutes. Do want to, though, let you know that outside this evening, no issues. Temperatures are warm. It's dry. We're in the low to mid-80s. In Atlanta, 86 at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, 80 in Covington, 77 Ellijay, Helen also in the upper 70s, 80 in LaGrange, 81 Carrollton, 81 in Thomaston. Though Griffin also 86, and that's outside the core of the city, so we're hanging on to some warmth. That urban heat island effect, as we talk about, certainly in play this evening with areas generally outside of the city, aside from Griffin, cooling at a quicker rate than in town. And with 97-degree temperatures this afternoon, upper 90s, it's going to take a while for the pavement to release some of that heat. It's kind of like putting a rock in an oven. You take the rock out, the rock stays hot for a while longer, even after taking it out of the oven. And today felt like an oven, so to speak. But we will cool off tonight into tomorrow morning. Mid-70s in Atlanta tomorrow morning to start. 65 Ellijay, 68 Helen, 69 Thomaston, 67 in Carrollton, 71 in Eatonton, 68 in Rome, 70 in Athens. So I would call it a mild start. Mountains cooler, certainly not as cool as it has been the past several mornings. And we've had many, many mornings recently with temperatures back in the mid-upper 60s, and our average low is 64 in Atlanta. So warmer than average for sure, both afternoons and, of course, mornings as well. Morning commute forecast. That coolest point of the morning, pretty early, 6:30, but more likely maybe 7:30, 7:45 in the morning in that window. And then by 9 a.m., we're more quickly and readily starting to warm up. It's a green light for the morning commute tomorrow. Lots of sunshine, no weather woes, no issues, not concerned about the weather negatively impacting that drive into work or taking the kiddos and your students to school. But we will warm up tomorrow. Today, 97. Tomorrow, we're going to go mid-90s, 94, maybe 93, 94, depending on exactly where you are. 88 at noon, 92 at 3 p.m., 90 at 6 p.m. So it's going to be a hot day. That is above average. Average high temperature is nearly 10 degrees cooler. And I will say forecast models have been having a hard time with just how hot we get. Some of the data has been in line with what we've seen. Other forecast models have been just a little bit too cool. So we are going to be looking at the setup tomorrow. We did bump up your temperature by 1 degree. And we're going to be watching the forecast here evolve over the next 12 to 24 hours, and you may notice different numbers as we get into tomorrow, as new data comes in, and of course we will be updating you there. I'm actually looking up what the high temperature is for tomorrow, the record high temperature, I should say, for tomorrow. I believe it's in the mid-90s. And yes, the record high temperature tomorrow is 94, and we're forecasting 94. So we could tie a record high temperature tomorrow. But still, the gist of the forecast, it's low impact, not much going on. Tomorrow, I know it's hot. I know it doesn't feel nice outside, but low impact weather tomorrow, low impact weather Tuesday, I think Wednesday, low impact weather. And then as we get into Thursday and Friday, obviously sticking out like a sore thumb, those 2 days, have the potential to include weather that could not only, impact your day, but we could be talking about major impacts for North Georgia, widespread severe weather conditions, a possibility, but that is in a worst case scenario, something that unfortunately we just can't take off the table just yet. Tanya Belcher saying we can see a lot of trees down, a lot of power out, and school will be out during the storm. In a worst case, that is absolutely a possibility, but we don't even have a system to track yet. And the Plains National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, NOAA, has multiple different planes. Of course, we have our hurricane hunters, Air Force reconnaissance, but we also have upper-level planes that go and sample data in and around the storm, and then the environment it's moving into in the Gulf of Mexico. And we have not yet seen much of that data really don't have much of that data yet, make it back into the forecast model. So we've seen some extreme images on social media, probably have been scrolling and seeing those for a week now, but we have yet to have anything concrete that we can hang our hat on, that we can bank on, but the possibility is there, and we plan for the possibility, right? Especially in a case like this. So we're gonna keep an eye on the forecast. But yes, Tanya, in a worst case, there could be trees down, power outages, that sort of stuff across North Georgia. Something we will be watching, and as soon as that we can take that risk off the table, we will be sure to do just that. But for now, it's a possibility. Again, system we were showing you just a few moments ago, not the only one being watched, but the one we're going to focus on for this particular stream. Again, Invest 97L. If you're just tuning in and you hear the word invest over the next 24 hours, that is what the National Hurricane Center, the term that they use for an area that they are investigating for tropical development. And the number changes with which each system, and 90 to 99, and they will just recycle those 9 or so numbers over the next next several weeks through hurricane season. It starts at 90, so we had our first invest earlier this hurricane season, started at 90. The next one was 91. The one after that was 92, and then the one after that was 93. So 10 numbers, so they kind of float through there, and that is going to be Invest 97L probably for the next, I would say, 24 hours. And then the next step would be if they found a tropical depression, tropical storm, they would classify it, and if it was a storm, they would give it a name. Hour by hour forecast again. I want to be very careful here because this is just one run of one forecast model, and we're not going to show you through landfall because that's likely to change several times over at this point. But just to give you an idea of how computers think this forecast and the system will evolve over the next few days. Notice how you start to get some of that counterclockwise spin. Certainly there's a ton of rain out here, a ton of moisture, but look at how the structure starts to change as we get into tomorrow. More spin. You can quite literally see showers and in some cases thunderstorms rotating around the area of low pressure as we get into tomorrow. And the same forecast, or the same trend, should say, will take place on Tuesday, watching gradual improvement in the structure, so getting more organized as we get into Tuesday and beyond. And you can see that spin there very obviously as we get into Wednesday evening. This system is still in the south central Gulf of Mexico, southeastern Gulf of Mexico, but it could be in a variety of places and in various states. Is it already a powerful hurricane? Is it still a tropical storm? We'll have to see how it contends with a little bit of wind shear. That's a possibility, and other factors, perhaps some land interaction either with Cuba or the Yucatan Peninsula or both. Water temperature certainly warm enough to support a powerful hurricane, so that's not really a wild card. That's not really a negative factor. And we don't have that much in the way of Saharan dust anymore. We just don't at the moment in this area. So the real limiting factors here could be some wind shear and land interaction initially, and we'll just have to see how this evolves, how it goes, what it becomes, and how its structure changes. This rain will move hundreds of miles inland. Some of these impacts will extend hundreds of miles inland across the inland, mid-south, and southeast. So we'll just have to see, as folks that are inland, yes, but not far enough inland to take the risk of wind and flooding rains off of the table completely in a worst-case scenario. We're going to have to keep an eye on this. Now, I want to remind you that you can ask questions. Sandy asked a question on YouTube. Atlanta News First is the account that we are streaming on right now. Just search Atlanta News First if you're watching on Roku, Amazon Fire, maybe in the First Alert weather app, and then you can watch there, but you can ask your question on YouTube. Again, Atlanta News First is the account that we are streaming on right now. Want to remind you that you can also text us. 470-777-WANF. That's 470-777-9263. Again, we're tracking First Alert weather days, Thursday and Friday. Right now, not a tropical system, but forecast to become a tropical system and the Western Caribbean, the far south central Gulf of Mexico, and this system. The next name on the list is Helene, and that could definitely be a factor in our local forecast as we get into Thursday and Friday. We're letting you know that we cannot take a worst case scenario for Atlanta off the table just yet. And if we had a strong, powerful major hurricane making landfall in the Florida Panhandle and racing northeast, up into Georgia, there would be impacts, significant impacts, spreading into North Georgia and Metro Atlanta, with the potential for widespread power outages, also the potential for heavy rain, and the risk of very quick moving and quick developing tornadoes that we often get with tropical systems. So again, here are the highlights of our Thursday and Friday first alert weather days. Widespread heavy rain and some flooding is a possibility, and in a worst case, it would be street flooding or urban road flooding, but also river flooding would be a concern. Damaging winds would be possible. We're talking, sustained winds, 30 to 50 miles an hour or so, with gusts higher than that. And in that case, we would be looking at some pretty widespread power outages and lots of trees and tree debris coming down. And tornadoes would be possible. Again, this is a reasonable worst-case scenario or forecast. That's what we're alerting you to, the potential that it could get really, really rough Thursday into Friday here across North Georgia and Metro Atlanta. That is not set in stone. Chisel has not gone into the rock. The system has not even formed yet. So there will be changes and alterations and clarifications to the first alert forecast here over the next several days. Again, Thursday into Friday, if the worst case were to happen, that is when the worst weather would be across North Georgia and Metro Atlanta. And if you have friends, family, loved ones down along the Gulf Coast, let them know. They probably already are aware, watching their local news team, watching a stream much like this one. But give them a text. Let them know they need to keep an eye on the forecast regionally as well. Georgia Coastal Empire, Macon area, Albany area, Valdosta. Keep an eye on the forecast. Tanya has another question. What is happening? The storm go east. On the backside, is it going to be sunny and go east? Tanya, we just don't know. If this storm went well to our south and east, we wouldn't have any negative weather, any bad weather, and that's still a possibility. We can't take that option off the table either. So I'm coming to you with a lot of information, but not much of a solid answer yet as to exactly what this is going to become and exactly where it goes. But the potential for a powerful hurricane, major hurricane, cruising through the Gulf of Mexico is certainly there. But this system has yet to be formed, and there's still a lot of good data that has yet to be put into these forecast models that are projecting these things. So it is worth keeping an eye on over the next, few days, 3-4 days. We're going to get more and more clarification. I think kind of rapid fire here as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday. That's when our forecast confidence, how confident a meteorologist is in the forecast that they are giving occurring in what they're forecasting actually happening. That confidence, I think, will increase quite a bit Tuesday into Wednesday. We're going to be communicating with the National Hurricane Center, National Weather Service as well, and we'll be communicating to you, Atlanta News First app, for some news information. Of course, if it does trend like a more significant impact in North Georgia, there will be some news links in there, Georgia power outage maps, all of that stuff. But also in the First Alert Weather app, you can track the system once it develops. Still not a tropical system yet, but once it develops, you can track any tropical system in the Atlantic Basin in the First Alert Weather app. Just turn your tropical tracks on, the tropical little feature in the layers or the overlays. Turn that on and you would see it with the forecast cone. You can click on it to get more information. And in addition to the app, we're going to be streaming like this on Atlanta News First Plus. And I want to remind you that, this is yet another way to get the forecast, but perhaps what makes it even more beneficial to you at home is that you can ask questions and I can give answers, and we can be very transparent, have an open and honest conversation, not just with, tropical stuff and hurricane season, but any severe weather event or any period of active weather. We can really chat, kind of have a two-way street here of communication and provide that clarification right in the First Alert Weather app. Anywhere you can stream Atlanta News First Plus, which is every streaming platform. And again, Tanya, hopefully that did provide some clarification. We will be tracking the forecast here, providing updates. Morning newscast starts tomorrow at 4:30, and then again at noon, and then again we are live all afternoon. But I think it's Tuesday into Wednesday that we're really going to start to have a much better idea as to what we see here in North Georgia and in Metro Atlanta. Right now, Thursday, Friday, First Alert Weather days, because both of those days hold the risk of some major weather impacts. Could be some widespread severe weather, widespread heavy rain and flooding in a worst-case scenario, a reasonable worst-case scenario, an option that we can't take off the forecast table just yet. So hence the need for you to pay attention. And much as we are watching those days, you should be watching them as well. Outdoor plans, commutes, those things could be impacted, but it is possible we could have more significant impacts and more significant severe weather conditions across North Georgia if the worst case scenario tends to play out. And we'll continue to keep you updated right here, as mentioned, all the platforms. And want to let you know we are live here in about an hour and a half. Atlanta News First on Peachtree TV, Atlanta CW affiliate starting at 10 p.m. And then we will be back on Atlanta News First WANF at 11 p.m. tonight. We will be giving you those updates through newscasts the next several days. If you're on the go, the app and ANF Plus is a good streaming option, a good option to get the first alert forecast. So not anything to worry too much about right now, but it is certainly something to keep an eye on. This developing tropical system likely to become a tropical system next 48 hours, and from then on it could become a powerful hurricane and it'd be moving through the Gulf of Mexico as we get into Tuesday night and Wednesday and into a Thursday and a Friday. We'll have to see if some of those severe weather impacts make their way into North Georgia and Metro Atlanta. Again, stay tight. Watch the forecast, pay closer attention than normal going through the work week. And at this point, that's all we ask you to do, and we'll be keeping you updated.